As some of you may know, I want to be a film director, and if I had to pick one director who has influenced me more than anything and made me realise that it is actually something I possibly could do, it has to be Kevin Smith. He has directed some of my favourite movies of all time: Clerks, Chasing Amy, Dogma, and even Zack and Miri Make a Porno. I am ashamed of nothing. In 2011, he made a horror movie called Red State, which I actually reviewed a couple of years ago. I really liked Red State. It proved Kevin Smith could direct a serious movie. After that movie, he said he was going to direct one more movie and then retire. This was going to be a hockey movie called Hit Somebody, then it was going to be Clerks 3 after that changed. Then during an episode of his fantastic podcast SMODCAST, he was inspired by an article he read online to write a horror movie. 5 months later, this horror movie started to be filmed. This would be the film that would stop him from retiring and make him realise that he can really make any film he wants. That film was Tusk. The idea for Tusk was incredibly ridiculous. Hearing the podcast, I thought, yeah, this could be a pretty good movie, but it's so stupid, so I doubt it would ever get made. Well, I had to eat my words because here it is. This film has pretty much completely polarised people. Some people consider it to be Kevin Smith's worst movie and one of the worst movies of 2014, and others saw its ridiculousness and enjoyed it for the tongue-in-cheek parody of human centipede and body horror movies that it is. I'm one of the latter of the two. In fact, I even put this film on my favourite films of 2014 list, because I think this film is really good. The film is about Wallace and Teddy, played by Justin Long and Haley Joel Osment. The two have their own podcast called The Nazi Party. On this podcast, they look at viral videos and make fun of them, as well as talking about their day-to-day life. Wallace is essentially a dick. Throughout the film, we see flashbacks that show how much of a loathsome person he is and how he constantly cheats on his girlfriend Allie, played by Genesis Rodriguez. Wallace gets the opportunity to fly out to Canada to interview one of the stars of a viral video called The Kill Bill Kid. But when he gets there, he finds out that the kid has committed suicide. Desperate to find a topic for the podcast, he finds a notice while in the bathroom at a bar. This notice is from an old man called Howard Howe, played by Michael Parks. The notice says that he is offering a free room in his house and he promises to tell a lifetime worth of interesting stories. Wallace gets to the house to interview him. Howard talks about how when he was younger he was in a shipwreck, but he was saved by a walrus who he called Mr. Tusk. Howard and Mr. Tusk became good friends until to survive he had to kill the walrus. Wallace starts to get drowsy as we find out that Howard drugged his teeth. The next morning, Wallace finds that his leg has been amputated and Howard starts to tell horrible lies about what happened. Then things get weird as we find out that Howard has the plan to take Wallace and turn him into a human walrus. He creates a realistic walrus bodysuit, then he psychologically damages Wallace to the point where he believes himself to be a walrus and cannot revert back. The film cuts back and forth between this plot and Allie and Teddy trying to save Wallace. They find a former inspector called Guy Lapointe, played by Johnny Depp. Yes, Johnny Depp is in this film. Guy Lapointe has spent years trying to find Howard Howe and stop him. We find out that Wallace isn't the first person who Howard turned into a walrus. He has spent 15 years trying to turn someone into a walrus so he can give Mr. Tusk another chance at survival and wipe away the guilt of having to kill him. The film, although is heavily inspired by the human centipedes and in many ways follows a very similar plot to it, is actually pretty unique. It really is unlike anything I've ever seen, which may or may not be a good thing. The film is incredibly draining, but not in a way where you feel bored or anything, but in a way where you feel absolutely disgusted by what you're watching. This isn't a film for the weak-stomached. The film gets incredibly fucked up a lot of times during the film. It really can get hard to watch sometimes. The performances in the film are fantastic. Michael Parks is absolutely insane. He is where a lot of the scary parts in the film come from. In fact, he terrified me at times to the point where I almost had to stop watching. There is one scene in particular which is sadly ruined in the trailers where I was scared to the bone. He is a really creepy character and Michael Parks plays him amazingly. He was fantastic in Red State, but Jesus Christ, he blows blows that performance completely out of the water with this film. Everyone else in the film is really good too, especially Justin Long. However, if there's one performance that I wasn't too big a fan of, it was Johnny Depp as Guy Lapointe. This is pretty much the Johnny Depp that we've all grown to dislike over the last few years. The guy who is basically trying way too hard to be good and is essentially just a walking cartoon throughout the whole film. He wasn't terrible at all. In fact, there were a couple points where he was actually really funny, but I found myself getting quite annoyed by him at times. He is getting his own film too, which I am kind of looking forward to. I just hope he's not as annoying as he is here. There is a flashback scene where we find out that Guy actually met Howard in the past. This scene is awful. The two are doing stupid voices, which wouldn't be too bad, but this scene just keeps going on and on and on. It's not really that funny at all, it's just incredibly irritating. If this scene was cut, literally not much would have been lost at all. My biggest problem with the film is the way it's edited. There is a fan edit out there that is definitely the way I think the film should have been. Basically in that fan edit, after Wallace gets drugged, it cuts away and shows all the scenes of Teddy, Ali and Guy trying to find him. Then when they find him at the end, it cuts back to us seeing everything that he went through. This would have made the film a lot more interesting, would have made the scenes of Howard and Wallace even more horrifying, because we would have been shown all that shit in one long blast. Instead, it shows a scene of that and then it cuts away and we're given time to calm down before it goes back. It would have been much better if we didn't have that time to calm down. It would have made the film much scarier and sicker. But the film the way it is by no means bad. I absolutely understand why people don't like the movie. In fact, I'm a little bit more surprised when I see other people who actually like it. Because this film is so messed up and twisted that it's definitely one few people are really going to like, at least not for a long time. This film is destined to become a cult classic. Its terrible reviews and horrendous box office returns will one day be forgotten when this film grows a large following, and I will be very surprised if in 20 years time this film doesn't have a following, kind of like how Kevin Smith's movie Mallrats does. In fact, this film is already starting to grow a following even now, which is great. This movie is dark, twisted and insanely messed up, but is over the top and intentionally comedic. Don't take it too seriously and go in knowing that it's a disgusting movie. You probably won't have much fun watching it, but you may see why I think it's a really good movie. I give it a 9 out of 10.